Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the football experience. I'm sure you've missed us as we have been away.
Missed us.
As we have missed each other, yes. Everyone is missing one another. Caleb, how you been? How you been? After a weekend of football and a weekend of NBA, we have one of our finalists.
We do. You love that shit. Denver are real, man. They're a good team. I did not like Michael Malone's comments in the press, and I thought the press just ate him up, but they were way too good for the Lakers. The Lakers shouldn't have really been there, to be quite honest.
Dude, I've been seeing like so much like LeBron comparisons once again, like to Jordan and stuff like that, because I saw his numbers. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a finals meltdown or like a conference finals meltdown, but like I've seen clips of certain moments where you would expect a player to come up clutch, and there was no clutch.
He's 38 years old and playing on plantar fasciitis, man. It's like they shouldn't have been here, the Lakers. I think for me, my analysis of this whole thing was Golden State was LeBron's finals. All he cared about, not all he cared about, he would have loved to win a title, but what he cared about most was making sure Steph didn't get another title. I think that was really
Steph
important.
has 4, right? So he has the same.
Yeah, he
amount.
has 4. Yeah,
But he'll get his 5th eventually. You would expect.
I don't know about that. Golden State were pretty piss poor this year.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I didn't think they should have won it.
How old is Steph Curry though? Is he like already 30?
34, 35?
Let me have a quick perusal on the old Google.
The basketball pod. Well, it is playoffs. Man, these conference finals have been whack. I think Boston are the biggest
He's
story.
35. Wow, I thought he was way young. I thought it was like 32.
Yeah, but his game, he could play for a long time.
Yeah, because he plays on the outside.
His inside game has got a lot better.
I know he play. I know he can. I've seen like him. He has insane like handling skills, and he can drive to the rim and stuff like that. But
when's LeBron going to Golden State then? That's the final chapter. Steph and LeBron. Goes full circle. After battling for like half a decade, a whole decade, they
Steph.
just team up and it's like it's time.
Durant goes back as well. Dwayne Wade comes back out of retirement, rejoins his brother.
You don't need Durant. Durant made his choice. Durant was fine. He could wander off in the wilderness.
Was Durant and LeBron, were they friends though?
I don't know if they're friends. They're like friendly enemies, I'd say, because they're on each other's turf.
But wasn't there like this one really good player that was like friends with LeBron, and it's like but they never got to play together? Who was that?
I don't know. There's probably a few. Chris Paul is the one who comes to mind.
I think
he eventually played with Carmelo. So
yeah.
And then obviously played with Wade, and Carmelo just retired. So there's our basketball portion of the pod.
The changing of the guard.
I could go for longer, but I know that's not what we're here to do.
Yeah, I'm sure you've said that before.
This weekend.
I'm sure many of women have heard that quote before. I could go for longer.
Yeah, moving swiftly on. I think. This weekend I didn't actually watch any basketball, but I was hooked on the golf this weekend.
But what about the other side though? Is it Miami?
Yeah, Boston, Miami. That's what I'm saying. Boston are the biggest story. Boston.
Weren't they like 8th seed or something?
Yeah, Miami the 8th seed. Milwaukee. They knocked off Milwaukee in the first round, which was crazy enough. And now they're here. And now
Wait, did they win last night?
No, they lost, so it's 3-1.
I was going to say they could have clean swept as well.
I don't know. I don't know if that series is completely over. I know history says 3-0 means it's 100% over because it's 150-0 every time which is a crazy stat in itself. I can't believe not one single team has ever come back from
a reverse sweep.
Yeah, well, but if it's, I don't know. Just given the fact that Boston should be so much better than Miami, if it's going to happen, it could happen here. The only problem is Boston have home court, but they're shit on their home court anyway, so it doesn't really mean much for them. But that's the wackier one. The Lakers one I kind of expected. The Lakers,
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't even think they'd get past Golden State, so I was pretty happy. I was pretty happy LeBron ended the Curry and the Golden State dynasty over there. I don't know what they'll do. Let's see if they re-up.
I don't know. You'd expect, considering I don't know.
Clay is not as good as he was, and Draymond is touching.
Yeah, that whole team is like aging or aged.
But Steph is as good as he's ever been though.
Yeah,
He's really good at the moment. Anyway,
but moving on from b-ball,
people.
let us go to what this pod is actually dedicated to and what's actually in the name of the pod: football, culture. And and isn't that perfect? And you know what else is back? What else is back?
Back in
Caleb?
the possession of the authorities. Look, you can keep 5 of it, but we're taking 10.
Yes. The fine is back, or the repercussion is back for our good pals over at Juventus. I was shocked because I think it was yesterday. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go have a look how the table's looking, and then I see like Napoli, Lazio, Inter. The thing that actually made me realize was Milan in fourth. I'm like, what the fuck? Like
What? Yeah.
what?
We thought they were done.
Yeah, I was like, weren't they like sixth like a week ago? Like before this match day, I'm like, what the hell happened? And then I see like Juventus in seventh on 59 points. I'm like, hang on, this maths doesn't add up right. Like, I'm pretty sure if Milan and Atalanta and Roma, I'm pretty sure even if they won, they wouldn't have leapfrogged Juve. It's like, how's this working? And then I switched over to news, and it's like, oh, they docked 10 points. So I was like, oh, right. So yeah, Juve now out of the Champions League. Like, do you know any?
You know what was super disappointing about the whole thing?
And then what? They lost.
For me, I don't know if they should get docked the points anyway. Like, I don't know about the morals of the whole thing and why, if they're getting pinpointed, I feel like other clubs could surely fall in line for this kind of punishment as well. But that's neither here nor there. This is the decision they had. But my problem was Juve went from second. They dropped down those 10 points. And then they found out, I think, just before their game away at Empoli. And my problem is, if they win that game at Empoli, they set up a clash with AC Milan next weekend where they're only 2 points behind them.
Yeah.
But instead they go and lose 4-1 at Empoli. I'm like, no! That Milan-Juve game would have been so good next weekend if they were able to close that gap to 2 points. It's just setting up for perfect drama, but fair play to Empoli. They made Juve play in this sort of chaotic fashion that I guess they're not used to. They can't play in the transition moments. They need to get some legs in that team that can organise that chaos for that Juve team. I think that's their next stage. But yeah, Empoli took them apart, and an Empoli team who didn't need to. They could have been on the beach already, but you know, maybe sometimes playing with that freedom, you can just play football in that way and smash Juventus 4-1. Maybe a distracted Juventus, of course.
But like this just opens the door for Roma again as well, and Atalanta, because it was pretty much.
I think Roma are done. They drew 2-2 with Salernitana.
Yeah, but it was pretty much all signed, sealed, and delivered with Juve back in the top two, top three.
No, how crazy! The team who always tip it off for me as to like what's happened with Juve's points is Lazio. Because remember Lazio was second and they were cruising. Then Juve were giving their points back, and it's like, oh man, there's a battle for second, and then it's like, it's kind of all good. Lazio had their good run of form, and then all of a sudden they're struggling to get in the top 4. They're only 4 points ahead of Milan, and now all of a sudden they're back into second. It's like nothing changed over the last month, but they were looking dicey for that top 4, but they were able to eke out their win. Dodgy penalty, I must say that they got against Udinese, but an important win for Lazio. Maybe the karma gods smiled on Sarri for once at the end of the season with this one, and yeah, they should be good. And Inter obviously lost away at Napoli. I think, interestingly enough, we didn't preview this game. Maybe we should have, because I think Napoli, I thought after our last pod, you know what, Napoli don't have anything really to play for the rest of the season, but maybe they like you get a bit bored of not playing well till the end of the season. So if there's one game you got to pinpoint where Napoli are kind of like, you know what, you know which game we want to do well in this game against the team who are pretty much I would if I was playing for Napoli or if I was associated with Napoli, I'd be thinking that Inter team have taken our spot in the Champions League. That should be us. That should not be them. So let's go out and make sure that we can assert our dominance again and say, you know what, we are in fact the best team in Italy. And yes, it was arrested Inter, maybe distracted, helped it with the Gagliardini red card, the second yellow. But the Di Lorenzo goal, left foot, top corner, I think is the exclamation mark on why he'll be my first team right back. I'm just going to give that one away for free a couple of weeks out from the pod or a couple of pods out, but Giovanni Di Lorenzo will be my first team right back as he has been sensational. And yeah, I think this was probably Napoli's last chance to really show up and show out, and they did.
Yeah, and they Inter have pretty much been the informed team over the last 4 or 5 weeks as well, and they pretty much showed their authority. Well, Napoli showed their authority on the Italian.
Yeah,
league.
I think that stuff is important. I think that stuff is important going into next season psychologically. You don't want to. It's like maybe Napoli learned from throwing. They didn't throw the game, but losing that game against AC at home. Maybe they learned from that. It's like, hey, this might be meaningless in terms of who's going to win the league, but this still means something in terms of the psychology of playing this team in the future. So, yeah, I think even just little wins, that's why these guys play at the level that they do. I think you've got to take your advantages wherever they come and make sure that you don't give any weakness away during the season. So, honestly, I think late season sort of stuff can be quite indicative. Remember when Leicester won the league? Remember their late season form the season before when they avoided relegation somehow? That was a minor miracle in itself. So sometimes these things roll over. That's why I'm kind of high on Atletico going into next season and a few of these teams finishing strong. I don't think Liverpool have deserved their results, but at least they're getting kind of their results in this end portion. But anyway, we're going away from Syria.
Just
But
quickly on that.
what about the lifeline? Oh, yeah, sorry.
When AC beat Napoli, was it 4-1 or 4-0?
4-0.
4-0. Did they already know that they were playing each other in the Champions League?
Yeah.
So they already knew. So that's even more damning to Napoli.
Yeah.
Like, you know that these are your opponents. Whereas if they lost to them and then the draw for the Champions League quarterfinals is semifinals. Was it semis? No, quarters. It's the in a couple of days' time after the game, and then you realize, oh, we're actually versing them. Then it's like, okay, well, you can sort of let it slide, but this is even more you can't let it slide, considering you know that's an upcoming game in 2 weeks' time.
I will be somewhat fair to AC in that game where I thought they took it as much as Napoli let it slip, but you're right, Napoli should have been more focused. But speaking about lifelines for AC Milan, how is the lifeline they've been given with this 10-point deduction? And very crucially, the Juve loss at Empoli. I think that's just important because if next weekend we had a do-or-die game between Juve and AC Milan, I know I'm taking Juve, who I would fancy more in that game because, yes, AC win 5-1 on the weekend. I mean, it's a win that kind of papers over cracks because they're playing against Sampdoria, who somehow are going to finish bottom behind Cremonese, who Cremonese took 20-something games to win their first game of the season. So that's how bad Sampdoria have been. So 5-1, I wouldn't get carried away, but I would get carried away by the fact Juve have lost 10 points and now somehow this AC Milan team, man, somehow they're going to have on their record this season they'll finish top 4 and be in a Champions League semi-final. I mean, that is fraudulent. That is really fraudulent for me. It's honestly, you know how much I love some of those AC players, but I just don't think. Honestly, the only memorable performance is that game against Napoli in the league. Even the Champions League stuff, it was memorable, but not because of how they played football at any point. So,
but it's probably overshadowed more based on how many players were missing, especially for the second leg. How many players were missing? Actually, probably a combination because you had Leao missing for the first leg, and then the second leg you had 2 injuries during the game, and then you had Kim Min Jae missing, and who else was missing? And Gise was missing as well due to suspension.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like 4 key players missing, and then I guess not Lau. He was missing in the
Osimhen.
Inter one. Osimhen.
You love doing that one because it's the same instance of the karma.
But even Osimhen, you could even say was, despite his goal, like he was pretty much missing for 85, 90 minutes in that game as well. So,
No, he was, of course.
but anyway,
But yeah,
like, is
that's
there?
the state of Syria at the moment.
Hang on, let me just.
What a crazy division. Culture is big.
But you know what? If Atalanta could sneak through if Juve do them a favor, because they have pretty much the same goal difference as AC.
How many points are they behind?
3 points. So they need to win the last 2 games. And I'm not sure about the head. You said Serie A is head to head though.
Yeah, it is head to head.
So I'm not sure how they went head to head, but they could potentially sneak through.
It's madness. It's madness. Atalanta, I've pronounced Atalanta dead like 2 or 3 times already this season. And then these points deductions and points given back and Syria.
Well,
The drama.
culture is back.
What about the drama? What about the drama a little bit north? What happened?
In Deutschland.
Oh my goodness
Deutschland.
me. Man, football can be quite cruel sometimes because I sat there watching the first half of the Bayern Leipzig game and I'm like, okay, this makes sense. This looks settled. This looks like something Thomas Tuchel would produce with this Bayern team. I think the positioning of Goretzka was key for me, the way he dropped back and played more as not an out-and-out double pivot next to Kimmich. He could still get forward at times, but he definitely had more defensive responsibilities, and the way it transitioned from a 4-4-2 sort of press or a 4-1-4-1 kind of press into a 3-4-3 sort of shape when they possess the ball like Chelsea used to play with Thomas Tuchel. I just thought it made sense. Musiala's playing as one of the 10s. He's a lot closer and a lot more central. Koeman's offering width one side. The rotations between Cancelo, Gnabry on the other side were really good, and that's what led to the first goal. Cancelo looked really good in this formation. It all kind of made sense. The only problem I had with the formation is I don't know why he favours putting Matthias de Ligt on the left-hand side of the back 3 when they possess the ball and Benjamin Pavard plays in the middle. I don't like that at all. I would rather that be the other way around, even though I know Pavard's a right footer and would prefer to be on the somewhere closer to the right. I don't trust his defensive. That's my problem. Like, de Ligt he hasn't made enough of a difference. We might get to him later, but I don't know. It kind of clicked. Like, tactically, I don't think Thomas Tuchel could do much more with this team. I think this makes sense. He's got players in the right positions. And for the most part in the first half, they were fine. They were 1-0 up against Leipzig. And then the whole game changes because they concede a counter-attack on the corner. And then they panic. I mean, there's no other explanation for it. You know a draw's not good enough in this game. You're at home, your last home game of the season. We must also say you're playing against a good Leipzig team. This Leipzig team has been very hit and miss this season, but they're coming back into hit form. Maybe they're another... Well, can't say that because of the players they're going to lose over the summer, but their form going into the end of the season, Marco Rose seems to have got it back on track after I thought he came in, did well. It kind of looked like it does now when he first came in, and then he lost it a bit, a few key injuries. I mean, the main part is Christopher Nkunku comes back into the team and they look completely different, but also Danny Olmo wasn't there for much of the first part of the season, and he's come back in, and Stoboslai's playing well. And hey, I flagged it going into this game, but guess who scored the equaliser? Mr. Conrad Lima, who's going to the Allianz in the summer. He's going to be very, very well received, I imagine, now after playing a pivotal part in probably taking away the title, probably taking away Bayern's last chance at a trophy for the season away. Who thought you'd be saying that going into the season? Just crazy. And yeah, crazy the way the second half flipped. I think it all comes... This one I will take blame away from the manager a bit more and put this onto the players. You can't collapse like that. The personnel you have, they have tendencies at the back to make mistakes like this that cost games. So, yeah, I think that's the problem that Bayern are fighting at the moment. They're kind of fighting the war on two fronts. Now, hopefully for them, Tuchel, given an off season, will be fine, and he'll show why he's regarded still as a top 5 coach in the world. I'm not saying that will happen, but I'm saying that hopefully that will happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But the personnel, they need to. I keep saying, like, I'm going to go back to it. Matthias de Ligt needs to have a big season next season, and if he is not in this bracket of number 1 centre backs with your Ruben Diaz's, your Ronald Araujo's, Williams Saliba, as we've seen how important he's been, Kim Min Jae. If he's not in that bracket, then Bayern aren't going to win the big things. So, yeah, surprise. It's topsy-turvy. And, I mean, Dortmund took care of business away from home. And their gift, I believe they're at home next weekend.
I think so, yeah.
And that makes a lot. I know it's probably a tough Mainz test. Is it Mainz?
I think it's Mainz, yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably a tougher test than you'd ideally want. But at home, they have been unstoppable. And they came through this Augsburg game without Jude Bellingham. So, man, they'd have to choke. They would have to choke at this point not to win it, because it is theirs. And they are rolling at the moment. They look like a good team. They're playing ultra attacking. There's still weaknesses there, but it hasn't mattered at the moment because their front players are clicking and gelling so well. They're scoring so many goals, and they look a really good watch at the moment. So, yeah, I think what a crazy one. Julian Nagelsmann sacked. You're still on for the treble, and now look at us. Munich is burning.
Let it burn. But like, no, it's just so crazy because I still can't believe how much their season turned based on that sacking. Because I'm still under the belief, and I'm sure you share this same sentiment, that had Nagelsmann have gone into the Man City tie, Man City still probably would have come through, but it would have been a much tougher. It wouldn't have been over in the first leg.
I'm not sure. But like, I think there are things that can indicate that. But there are also things that can indicate that Manchester City are just a much higher level. And if Nagelsmann didn't get it spot on, and maybe getting it spot on is asking a bit too much of not a rookie coach at this level, but not comparable to Guardiola. So I'm not sure, but I think there were some indicators that they could have put together a game plan that maybe had a better chance of exposing some City weaknesses.
Yeah, look, like I said, I don't think it would have been... Like, it was over in the first leg because City won 3-0.
But remember, the narrative around Tuchel coming in was he was the perfect guy to go against Guardiola.
Yeah, I know. But I think it's just all too soon. He doesn't have enough time to work with the team, because at least he had... I think when he came into Chelsea... Didn't Frank get sacked like in... Was it December or like November? So by the time the Champions League rolled around, he had like, 3 months with the team.
Yeah, that feels right.
Yeah, so...
And also, he had no crowd as well.
That too. But if you look at... also, like, Nagelsmann's... Like, he was 8-0 in the Champions League this season. Like,
I know, man, and that wasn't an easy... That was not an easy 8-0.
Yeah, like, smashed Barca. I think they beat Inter, was it both times 2-0 or like 2-0 and 3-0?
Yeah, they won every group stage. Yeah, of course,
but they didn't even concede against Inter, who were one of the finalists this season.
Finalists, Spanish champions.
Yeah. So, and then obviously they...
French champions.
Yeah, it's... Oh, well, this is football karma at its best.
I think that's fair.
Oh, well.
But we will see next season.
Fine.
Next season tells all. Let's see if you were being serious about it when you said it was at least medium term thing. Because next season they have to They have to definitely win the league, probably win the cup,
Yeah, look,
but
I
give it a real
expect
good
them.
go at winning the Champions League.
I expect them to be back on track next season
Me too.
to winning
Me
the
too.
league.
But I keep saying it.
Especially with Bellingham
Matthias
potentially leaving as
Delit.
well.
Yeah, in the league, yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
Dortmund have mounted this challenge, and he's been their best player, and they're going to lose him. So,
Yeah.
but he turns around and stays.
Well, he's only 19, so he has time on his side. But at the same time, you don't know what the future holds, especially in football. You know, you could have the season of your life, and then you can have a really serious injury in preseason, and then your career just falls apart. And we've seen that countless times with players who showed immense potential, and then nothing came of it. So. Hopefully that doesn't happen to him, because you don't want to see that happen to great talent. But Caleb, we now have champions of England officially.
Of course. Yes.
And
who could have seen this coming, eh?
but you know what? I think the most disappointing thing about it is that I know all the permutations were regardless of even if Arsenal win, City just need a draw and then they're champions. But the most disappointing thing about it is City were crowned champions without having to play their game against Chelsea. That's the minimum I would have asked for. Okay, at least win your game so that you force City to have to win or draw. You force a result out of City essentially, so that they have to play a game to actually win it, and they go into that game already champions. And it's talk about going out with a whimper.
Well, that's what I was going to say. How I was talking about that form to end the season. Well, I don't necessarily like what I've seen from Arsenal. To finish this season.
I was thinking about the best analogy or metaphor to compare, I guess, the season. And did you watched the Fast and Furious movies, especially the first one? You watched the first one, yeah?
Yeah, just watched the new one last night.
Yeah. But do you remember the first one when Paul Walker and Vin Diesel, their very first drag race, and then Paul Walker blows his nitros too early, and then at the end of the race he's like, "Oh, I almost had you," and then Vin Diesel's like, "You had me? You never had me. You never even had your car." It's that's the same as City, Arteta and Arsenal, "Oh man, we almost had you." City, you never had me.
You want to bring it back to the start of the pod. It was like LeBron's game 4. It was just he came out, he just put up heaps of points, he was killing it, and then by the second half, he was an old man, and it was just I've got no gas left, I got no NOS left in the tank. The Nuggets are just you never had us. We're too good for you. So, yeah, man, it didn't look like that in the middle of the season. It did not look like.
But if you,
I don't know. Yeah.
If you look at all the way through, it was the last 8 games essentially that we lost it.
It's not good form, man. Like I said, I have a lot of these questions for a lot of teams next season. Arsenal are definitely in that category.
You know what it is, though.
Hey, good news. What, yesterday morning? Big long-term contract signed by
for Saliba,
Mr. Saka.
Oh, Saka. Wasn't that done weeks ago?
I thought it was, but
I thought it was done weeks ago.
The news was only being reported yesterday.
Saliba is the one that needs to sign his long-term contract, because he's technically been at the club for 3 years now. So I think
what's his injury?
I think it's a back injury, you're familiar with back injuries.
That's not good. Oh, that's not good, man.
Yeah.
And it feels a bit mysterious, this injury. It's we haven't really heard he kind of just left the team with all those games left, and it's where's Saliba? He's not playing.
I've seen him a couple of times. I've seen him not on the bench, but behind the bench. So he was at the games. So he's come and what? So it's not he's been completely ousted from the squad based on bad behavior.
No, I'm not saying anything like that. But a back injury.
Well, like I said, me and you know a lot about back injuries. and like how like damning it can be. I remember like I could barely get out of bed when my back was absolutely screwed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully now I don't know whether it's impact based or whether he's sprained or whatever it is. But hopefully he has a good recovery over summer. But even so, I saw on I think it was on Monday Night Football or something. They compared um like Arsenal with Saliba before the World Cup, Arsenal with Saliba after the World Cup, and then Arsenal without Saliba. And I think like the points totals, for instance, before World Cup was like 2.5 points per game. And then after the World Cup, it dropped to like 2.12. But the goals conceded with Saliba in the team post World Cup is exactly the same, or was exactly around the same before the Brighton game. I think it was before the Brighton game, as like so the goals conceded without him in the team and with him in the team post World Cup is exactly the same. I think they conceded 16 or 17 goals with him and then 16 17 goals without him. I'm not quite sure how much we can put it down to him. I'm actually going to put it more down to squad depth because he hasn't had a rest all season. And then in the last couple of weeks, he's looked a little bit not electric or not. He's just looked like he can't beat his player. And I know he gets doubled up and tripled up in like almost every game, but like it's almost like he's lacking some kind of energy. Jesus has been poor as well. Like the form has just completely dropped off across the entire team.
Yeah,
not just pinpointing one player with Saliba missing. Because like
I think you're right. I think you're right to pinpoint Saka though, because he was such a destructive force when you guys were rolling.
For instance, Martinelli as well against Brighton, he got injured like 20 minutes in or something, and like with him, we were actually looking very good. When he went off, I don't think I talked about this, but like when Trossard came on, like Brighton knew exactly what foot he wanted to go onto, what side. They read him like a book.
Well, on that point, you talk about squad depth, which I agree with, but I think there's another factor as well, and I think teams are starting to figure out a little bit Arsenal, because when you're at the top, people are shooting for you. You get that much exposure. Everyone's analysing you while you're there. So teams are coming up with more sophisticated game plans against them, and I think you could kind of see that they seem to lose the ball a lot in playing out in this run. That's what they've seemed to do, and you think, of course, that draw against Southampton starts in the first minute in that exact fashion, losing a ball trying to play out. So
that was the second goal against West Ham that Ramsdale passed it in, or no, was it? What goal was that? Where he like passed it directly into the West Ham. I think it was against West Ham. First goal was a penalty.
I don't remember.
Or maybe it was.
That's what.
I can't remember. But Ramsdale, I think he's had like 2 or 3 goals that are directly his fault because he passed it like into their player. Like against Brighton, the second goal, I think it was. That was like him passing it to a player or to Trossard when he was under pressure, and then Trossard tries to play it first time and it gets intercepted.
Yeah, so I don't know. Going forward, I'm interested to see how they start next season. I'm interested to see what they do over the summer and who they can get in, and that's for later pods. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like they were going to win it because the football was good enough, and Manchester City were
not good
enough.
Yeah, bad enough.
Yeah, not good enough. Exactly right. But that all just
completely flipped. But
you gotta say, I was saying it around the time that I think start of the season City's focus was still Liverpool, even though it shouldn't have been for the way Liverpool started. Once they flipped their focus to Arsenal, once they flipped the whole script, Manchester City. And this is where you got to give Arsenal credit. They put the pressure on City to have to do that. I don't think Guardiola ever wanted to chastise the club, the fans, the players in those interviews around the Tottenham game. But I think the pressure Arsenal were putting on them, Guardiola knew he had to do something because he knew it would be a race It wasn't quite of the same level for the way that Arsenal have fallen off, but a race pretty much like the ones they've had with Liverpool in recent seasons, and I know how much that has taken. But also, I do think that the fact it was Arsenal gave him a chance to do the whole dark side thing. Because you've got a rookie, not a rookie, but a manager who learnt under you, is your apprentice pretty much. What are you going to do that's going to surprise him? Well, my whole career has been built on somewhat a morality of
Playing
having to
nice.
play a certain style of football. This is what's going to surprise you: the fact that I'm willing to set up my team to go to these depths to win these games, and I'm willing to go out and do the Fergie mind games in the public, in the press. So, man, hats off, because I think, like we keep saying, it's admirable the way that Guardiola, the way that this Manchester City team would just continually find ways to win. And yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how they go next season, how they remotivate, retool. I don't think Haaland will have any problems, and I guess all of these topics. Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say, like, well, you're talking about like retooling and everything, but like apparently there's rumors of Gundogan going to Arsenal.
Arsenal, man.
Yeah,
So to repeat the trick,
I'm just not.
he would be a good one in that Xhaka role. He'd be a great signing in that
He,
Xhaka role.
yeah, he would. Like yes and no. Like I'd rather someone younger, like a Bellingham or a Rice. I know Bellingham won't be coming
I
unless.
think Arsenal need that statement signing. The one that says that we don't have to take your rejects. How can you call Ilkay Gundogan a reject the way he's playing at the moment? But the players you no longer want. We can take some of the players from the other parts of the market where you would maybe want to swim in. Bellingham.
Yeah, but that's a
Rice.
weird one because let me just see how old Gundogan is because I think he's only like 32, isn't he? And he's the captain of City as well.
Yeah, he feels like he might be a cheeky younger than you think guy.
I really liked him when he was at Dortmund. Yeah, he's 32.
I loved him when he was at Dortmund.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's a really weird one that like City are willing to let him go because like who are they bringing in to take his position then? Because Calvin Phillips Calvin Phillips hasn't like featured at all. I know he played against
This might
Chelsea.
just be a freshening up thing.
Maybe.
Because I think and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm interested to see about Manchester City in the summer.
Does City
and
then go
going
for
next
Rice?
season.
Is a City
exactly,
a City like sneakily behind the scenes thinking of swooping up Rice?
That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? Him and Rodri patrolling a midfield. Oh,
And then De
that'd be
Bruyne
kinda
in front of him.
But yeah, this is what I'm curious to see, what Manchester City's tactic is in the window, and what their motivation is like next season. Because I guess we kind of thought this season they were slipping off motivation wise, but they've been able, like we say, to refocus and re-energize for this run in, and yeah, they've pulled it off again, man. They do this. Don't have Manchester City in your rear view mirror. Just don't, because they'll overtake you. They just will. It's to go full circle back to the Fast and Furious. That's exactly what it is. You never had us.
Yeah, you just see like you think it's Pep Guardiola in the rearview mirror, but no, it's Vin Diesel, or vice versa. Like you just see some you just see some shining bald head, and you're like, oh wait, who is it? But like I actually like just thinking about that's like the perfect analogy, like just that scene after the drag race, and then who would Liverpool be? Would Liverpool be that black guy that like he thinks he's coming first or something? And then he's just like, no, Monica. Then he gets overtaken by Vin Diesel and Paul Walker. Or is that Chelsea?
I don't know. I feel like we were our challenges got a bit closer to the line than this one, at least.
Well, was there a game last night?
Wasn't there Newcastle Leicester, which meant that Newcastle
secured that. Yeah, they've secured the top four. When are United playing then? They're playing tonight. Tomorrow night they're playing Chelsea. So yeah, you need to hope that they.
Point, so it's done.
Well, until it's actually
point from the next two games.
Yeah, you'd expect them to get a point at the very least. If this was top four Chelsea, you could have expected maybe that Liverpool can sneak through.
Well, Newcastle. I thought Newcastle going to if Liverpool were able to beat Villa. And side note, how it was so nice that Bobby scored in the 89th minute. Got to say goodbye to everyone with a goal. That was great. Really nice moment. But yeah, if we won that game, then Newcastle still, especially if Newcastle drew like they did this morning, or yet last night, um, then they had to go to Chelsea.
Mm.
So I know Chelsea are crap, but still, this is can Newcastle hold their nerve? So even though even though I think everyone had their eyes set on Manchester United, will they bottle this? Will they finish out outside the top four? I always sneaky thought it might be Newcastle, the Liverpool chase down, because there were more question marks over their nerves, I think, than Manchester United. Manchester United have some experienced players in there, so. But alas, it should be both of them, and it should be both of them for the way that they've played this season. To be quite honest, I think they're more deserving than Liverpool. And that's just how it is. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised Liverpool are even fifth and convincingly fifth at this point.
Mm.
To be honest, that they've rallied to that kind of point. Like I said with the Juve run in the middle of the season where they kept like 6, 7 clean sheets in a row. I think this Liverpool run before the Villa game was a bit of fool's gold. I don't think they were that good. But the Trent revelation was uh, finally implemented. I mean, Manchester City have only been playing with inverted fullbacks for like 3 seasons now, but this was the only time that Klopp finally cottoned on to the fact that hey, we've kind of got a fullback with those kind of characteristics. Maybe we can use him in there. But that's another question. What Liverpool do? So I don't know, but top four looks right
Just
in the Premier League.
a quick question before we move on to our, I guess, our final segment. Okay, so it looks Liverpool looks to have. I think they've secured Europa League. Yeah, they've secured
Yeah,
Europa League football. What's the focus for next season? Do you want them to actually go full strength? I guess in the group stages you don't go full strength teams.
exactly. You play it like that.
But do you
You
want
just gear
them,
up.
Do you want them to actually go for the Europa League and win it? Because I think that's the only trophy that Klopp hasn't won with Liverpool. Besides the Conference League, obviously, but I guess the only like semi-major trophy. So do you want them to fully go for that? Like, what do you want their focus to be? Do you want it to be back on winning the league? Do you want it to be top four and Europa League?
Man,
Like,
if it could be winning the league, then it's winning the league. That's for sure. I think the Europa League is
what's a realistic target, I guess, or focus, or
well, the Europa League is a play it as it lies sort of competition. So you survey the surroundings, you survey the landscape, and you just have a look around. It's like, where are we in the league? Are we more realistic to finish top four in the league or try and win the Europa League? So as it comes around, I think obviously you start in the group stage, you take it game by game. Throw a game by game cliche out there for you. But I think that's what you do. And you judge your opponents. What kind of team do we need to beat this opponent? You get through that, hopefully with minimal fuss, and then you see where you are. You see what kind of opponents you get, and you see where you are in the league table. And I think league should always come first over Europa League. But they're like all these Italian clubs have found this season. There might come a point where Roma, it's more realistic. We get through to the Champions League through the Europa League. So this is where we put our eggs. We put our eggs in this basket now. So I think it's more like that. Whereas Champions League, the glitz and the glamour ties, they take priority, don't they? And that's what you're looking forward to. It's just natural for everyone. But the Europa League, yeah, harder to motivate. But I think if you're in the Europa League, if you're a club like Liverpool, you've got to be thinking we could get to the quarterfinals minimum, and then it becomes a question: what kind of teams do we want to put out quarterfinals and on? Like, do we need to put quite strong teams out? But yeah, well, we've had some good memories in the Europa League as Liverpool fans recently. We battered Man United at Old Trafford on the way to that final in 15-16. We had that comeback against Dortmund that same season at Anfield. Klopp's first season. So, yeah, I don't know. You could still get some good European nights at Anfield in the Europa League. So, all in all, I'm pretty happy we've qualified for it in the end.
yeah, well,
It's not the one I wanted,
But
obviously.
you know what
But
though, it just might be one of those like actual realistic avenues for that fifth English team to make it into the Champions League, because now with Newcastle being added to the mix, and you would expect Chelsea. They got Poch for next season now, so you would expect them to
of course, yeah.
be back in the top four hunt. I don't know what the hell is happening at Tottenham. Looks like they might just completely fall out of that top six. So Newcastle's going to completely replace them, because like we don't even know who the manager at Tottenham is going to be. Harry Kane has had
We
the
don't know
season
about
of
Harry
his.
Kane. That's the main thing.
Harry Kane's had the season of his life. He scored like 28 goals so far, so he might even hit 30. And
And I think he scored him in like 24 or 25 different games as well, which is crazy.
so like who knows what's happening there? Maybe he moves to United, and then Tottenham completely fall off a cliff.
Why is it United? I've got to question this. Why, if I'm Harry Kane, why would I go to United? I'm not guaranteed anything at
See,
United.
if it was United with
I,
Ferguson, you'd see it as like a
exactly.
certainty
Yeah.
almost. But maybe it's because like now United are a little bit rejuvenated, but they do need a number 9.
I do agree he would fit in there
He'd fit in
perfectly,
there,
I
yeah.
think. And I think there's another question. Is Marcus Rashford as good as he has been next season? If he has Harry Kane next to him, maybe he can be. Maybe that could be lethal. So don't get me wrong. I see in the footballing sense why United, but I don't know. If I'm Harry Kane, I'm not going to another Premier League club. I know he might want the Premier League goal scoring record, but I'm going somewhere where I can be closer to guaranteed to winning trophies. And that would be Real Madrid, that would be Bayern Munich for me. I don't would Barcelona want him? I don't think they can afford him. I don't think they have
They got
that many
Lewandowski as
levers to
well.
pull.
You'd have to
But
offload
I think it's those
Lewandowski.
two. Italy's too competitive. I don't think you're guaranteed anything there.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's Bayern or Real for me. That's where I'd go if I was Harry Kane. But I
It,
guess
it,
United are the most suitable Premier League club.
it would have been City last season,
Yeah, of course.
at the start of last season. But then
I
Haaland
just
obviously came.
yeah, and just quickly before, I guess we're going into our thing now. But shout out to Sociedad for beating Barcelona at the new camp, and they're 5 points clear, so they just need, you'd think, a point, but one more win will secure top four. And yeah, they've put together a nice little run after being a bit shaky in the middle part of the season, and they should finish top four now. Win probably the most low key, most boring top four battle. Also, Lens also won in France, and Marseille on a weekend where Marseille lost. So Lens are now, I think, just one win away from securing second spot, which is no less than they deserve, or no more than they deserve. I think they've probably been the best team in France, to be quite honest, because of the way PSG have capitulated post World Cup. I think they've taken that spot, and yeah, they deserve to be straight into the Champions League next season. So yeah, just those little notes before we go into what we're gonna do.
Yeah, and it's a shame that PSG couldn't drop points at Alger. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
They got pretty easy fixtures coming in, and they got Messi back, the main man.
yeah.
He's back and playing.
It's similar to United, like Liverpool and United situation, where like if PSG, but there's a massive goal difference. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
They've won.
exactly.
They've won it.
Done.
Yeah, it's done. But yeah, let's wrap up the pod with our end of season awards, and we're taking a bit of a page out of Monday Night Football's book, stealing some of their award titles. So Caleb, but like we're doing it with our own little twist. Caleb, you're going to be you're going to be giving your, I guess, off the cuff European sort of content.
I'm here as a passenger. I want to listen to your list, and then I'll just give little notes here and there with a continental flavor, probably.
Yeah, exactly. So like mine's mostly, actually, it's pretty much all EPL centric. I was thinking of putting like some maybe World Cup stuff in there, or like from the Champions League and stuff like that. But I thought maybe I do EPL centric, and then you do you can throw in your like other league personnel
Yeah.
or award recipients or shout outs or whatever. Um, so we'll start it off with the manager of the year. Now, this one is it can be obviously like with all these awards, they can be interpreted differently because, for instance, you can give manager of the year to like straight off the bat, you're like, okay, well, whoever wins the league or whoever wins the most titles should get manager of the year. But then you can also preface this award by saying, well, it's the manager that did the most amount of work with, I guess, like a weaker sort of personnel and like maybe overachieved or did much better than what.
There's a lot of ambiguity.
Yeah, so like
the manager of the season.
There's a lot of ways that you can look at it, but you know what? I think the standout one should be Eddie Howe. And it's probably going off of the last 18 months rather than the last like 12 months or like 10 months.
Talk about good form to finish a season and carrying it over. Look at what they've done.
Yeah, and I think even last year when we were talking about Newcastle, I'm not sure if we expected them to like guarantee European football, whether it was I think the way we were looking at their progression was probably to get in the Conference League this season. Get that 7th spot or 8th spot in the Premier League and then build on that. Then like next season go for, because based on like the players that they were signing, they weren't like going out and spending stupid amounts of money on like, you know, Mbappe or Neymar or, you know, those sort of players that are up in the wind.
They did spend a pretty stupid amount of money on Anthony Gordon. I'm just going to throw that one out.
Yeah.
What was it, like 45 mil in the end?
I think it was 45, yeah.
Ooh. He might come up in another category you've got later on.
But he might end up coming good, who knows?
He might, but he's not getting it at the moment.
Yeah.
See. Like Eddie Howe, I think Eddie Howe deep down is very frustrated with it.
Probably, yeah. But look, I think, like I was saying, based on the progression that we expected in Newcastle and based on the signings they're making, we expected Conference League / Europa League challenge, like Europa League spot challenge this season, and then next season, like guarantee Europa League, maybe a top 4 challenge, but like they've super overexceeded everyone's expectations this season. They've looked fantastic as well. So it's not that the league has been completely poor. Like, they've actually looked very, very good throughout the whole season in doing what they've done. And, like, considering that they were they winless? Or did they have, like, one win before Eddie Howe came in like, January?
I think it was one. They were second bottom. They might have been on, like, 5 points in the league and 11 games in or something.
And he completely turned that around. I think, like, with maybe, like, 8 or 10 games remaining last season, he basically guaranteed that they wouldn't go down, and everyone was putting them to go to definitely be relegated last season. So, yeah, Eddie Howe for my manager of the season. I think it would have definitely been Arteta if Arsenal actually wrapped up the league. I think that would have been a definite. He's obviously an honourable mention. Pep's obviously a very like he's like pretty much always there for manager of the season. De Zerbi is a very he's probably maybe second or third in that list. Like you'd probably put Pep behind.
I want to. Oh, I don't know. De Zerbi, the De Zerbi ball revolution has been great. The football's been great to watch. It's kind of Sarri-like. And I love that about it. I want to see De Zerbi next season because this could just be a classic case of him coming in and the foundations being so strong that it just meant that he was so able to do what he did when he came in. And I'm not taking that away from him, but I just think maybe they keep rolling and maybe they do what people expect and they got a challenge for Europe again next season. I don't quite see it panning out that way, especially if they lose 1 or 2 players. And then from that point, the McAllister to Liverpool sort of stuff.
And Caicedo to Arsenal. I'm not sure if one other player is rumoured to go, but surely 1 or 2 other players.
That's what you'd think. And I I think from a temperament standpoint, I'm interested to see how De Zerbi reacts when things don't quite roll. Maybe how they have, because he's very animated on the touchline. The football tactically is great. So I don't know. I'm not saying it will go one way or the other. I'm just saying I'm interested to see, and it's a bit iffy. I'm a little bit iffy on giving it to someone who does a turnaround job or sort of comes in and does that sort of thing, builds on foundations, because I don't think I've seen you do the full job. I think the full job involves building something from the start and seeing it through to the end of the season. Now, sometimes situations can give you a different perspective because the team was so bad before someone comes in and they turn it around, and then all of a sudden that guy looks like a good manager. And I think a big rule that I'm coming forward on, and I think I'm realizing, and it was actually the NBA playoffs that made me realize it with the Boston head coach, is never ever give an interim manager the full time job. Just never do it. It's never a good idea. It's never for the long term sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just using that as an example to say sometimes like a Roberto Di Matteo comes in mid season, turns everything around, looks like a saint for it. It's like that guy wasn't a good manager. Come on, we can all see it. Now I'm not saying De Zerbi's in that category, but I'm just saying I want to see him when he builds, in an off season, and then I want to see him when the chips are maybe down a little bit, how he sort of manages that situation, because the football is blindingly good, but I think there's still at least some questions that need to be answered. So I don't know. I think Ten Hag deserves a mention as well.
Mm.
I think for giving up his sort of stubbornness at the start of the season and to turn it around. He got a little bit stubborn again towards the end of the season, it seemed, but he deserves a mention. I think any one of those managers who have taken their teams into the top four positions, I think they've all done good jobs. I don't begrudge you Eddie Howe. I think based maybe on just a purely numerical sort of thing in terms of him increasing players' values, he probably is the manager of the season just based on that. When you think Joe Willock is now an outstanding midfielder, Joel Linton, Almiron's now a good winger after being joked about last season. So in that case, you can't. But Pep is right. Like you say, he's right up there. It's about your interpretation of what it means to be manager of the season. I'm hard pressed to go anyone above Pep just for him caving on his morals a little bit.
That's the
I
other
kind
thing,
of
like the
admire that about
turnaround,
it.
the turnaround as
Yeah,
well.
I kind of admire that. The Fergie like mind games. I love seeing that dimension to his management, because honestly, I know people love his hybrid things and what he's done tactically this season. I don't love it, although it has been super effective. But I love what he's done outside that in terms of managing motivation of the players, refocusing the fans, the whole club, and to go on this run. Oh man, as good as Eddie Howe has been, and I would not begrudge anyone who put Eddie Howe number one, I just can't go above Pep. And there's no one on the continent who sort of touches that, to be quite honest. Spalletti's the only one if you want to give a sort of nod of improvement, but I think like, I know he had a big part, but it's kind of that Ancelotti at Real Madrid. It's kind of that a little bit laissez-faire. The players are sort of clicking. So let's see what they build for next season now that teams can game plan on them a little bit more for that. And if they keep all their players, of course. But yeah, no one on the continent really. Maybe Frank Haas from Lons has done a fantastic job. That's your overachiever thing. He'd go in the Eddie Howe category.
What about Will the Still? Doesn't even have
Xavi's-
his UEFA Pro license, and
Yeah, well, they've fallen off a bit of late as well. And in Terzic, he deserves a mention. He's another young manager who's done well. Xavi obviously deserves a mention
Xavi,
as well. I would actually look, not for manager of the season, but I do want to say that Diego Simeone and Max Allegri, I think, have done decent jobs this season. Simeone a little bit more so, but Allegri's had a lot to deal with this season, and I think for the most part he's managed to refocus his team to a decent level this season and sort of settle on something. The football isn't always great, but yeah, I want to give them a little shout. But yeah, I can't look past Pep. I don't even like Pep, but I admire the hell out of him. It's the Fergie conundrum. I'm back. I'm back to the situation when I was a
I
teenager.
think you
I hate Man United. I hate Fergie, but I respect the hell out of him.
see now. I reckon you probably liked Pep before he was a direct rival to Liverpool. So like when he was at Barca and Bayern, you probably liked him then, and probably liked the football that
I
he
liked
played.
him. I liked him at Bayern for the football. I didn't love him at Barca. I thought it was a little bit too much. Everyone was pouring it on just a bit too much with Barca. I never loved the Barca teams either, so I was a bit more on the Real Mourinho side of those rivalries, to be quite honest.
Yeah, well, 'cause you're a weird cat. But moving on from that long-winded manager of the year, and like probably these categories will be long-winded. Player of the year. Now, there is one obvious one that we can put for player of the year based on his stats and the impact that he's had, but I'm gonna put him down as young player of the year. So actually, I'll do this as a dual one. So player of the year and young player of the year. I think
What's your criteria for young player of the year?
I think 21 and younger. I know that apparently the official one.
Haaland's over 21.
I think he's 20. Is he 21 or 22?
I think he's 22.
I'm definitely not going the. I think the EPL has 24 and younger, but I think 24. Like you're already in football in terms, you're already middle aged. Like by the time you're 24, 25. Let me just check. I think maybe he started off as a 21-year-old when he started the season. July 21. Okay. Well, he started off as... Look, I'm putting Haaland as my young player of the year. He's still young enough. He's still young enough. 22 and younger. I'm still going younger than what the... Still going younger than what the EPL's official one is. And look, I guess for young... You could have easily put him as player of the year, like scoring 50 goals in this season in all competitions. 50 plus goals. Broke the Premier League scoring record with, was it 6 games remaining? Or 5 games remaining? Like, insane, basically. And the way that his dip coincided with Man City's dip. So it was like, had that mid-season post-World Cup dip, and now it's like, he scored those 5 goals against Leipzig. I think that was probably the turnaround time of that sort of like 1 week, 2 week period around that Leipzig game was the turnaround. But yeah, I'm putting him down as young player of the year. Obviously, honourable mentions or shout-outs would have been like Martinelli, Saka, from other teams. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Who from other teams would have been honourable mentions?
Young player.
Saliba as well. He's 21, I think. So Saliba would have been a very honourable mention.
Yeah.
Just trying to think who stood out from the other teams. Like Newcastle don't really have anyone that's like young. Almiron's like our age, like 30, isn't he? Like 28, 29. From City,
I don't think he's a young
City. Player. The way the season started, you probably could have put Foden there, but he is post World Cup. He has not featured at all.
What about Rico Lewis?
your boy.
I think just quickly, because I don't really like. Honestly, I don't care that much. I think it's the least care-worthy sort of award that gets given out. Young Player of the Year.
Player of the Year, you could have easily given it to Haaland, but I'm giving it to.
Yeah.
I'm giving it to.
Wait! Whoa! Calm down. Just on the Young Player of the Year, like the continental sort of selections you have. I think for me it would be between, because I think it's almost like in the NBA giving Erling Haaland like a most improved award by giving him the young player. It's like he's too good for that award, if you get what I mean. It's like he shouldn't be in the running for that award.
I know.
Like I get that he might qualify, but like he should only be in the running for best player of the year. So, but in terms of young player of the year, Jude Bellingham might fall in that same category as Erling Haaland. He's almost too good for young player of the year. Yeah, and Bukayo Saka as well.
Pedri as well.
There, so. But yeah, you're putting all of those guys, I think, are in the running for that young player of the year slot.
A lot of those guys probably could have been in the running for player of the year as well.
Exactly right. If I had to pick between all of them, it'd be between Saka and Bellingham for me. a young player.
Honestly, you could put Martinelli in there because I think he has one less goal than Rashford,
Yeah, I
and
know
like he
his
has like
numbers
10,
are
10 or
great,
11 assists as well, and he's played less
and
games than Saka if I'm not mistaken as well.
he's definitely been the informed player in this portion of the season. So I think Pedri would have been a good shout if he didn't get injured in the middle part of the
Yeah,
season
that
as well. But
was that could
Arsenal never looked as good without him.
I reckon they would be in the Europa League final right now if he played that second leg.
Hot take, yeah. Second leg, Old Trafford, good enough to get him through. They were 1-0 up in that as well. So
Yeah, but
anyway, player of the season. I cut you off just
player
with
of the
my little.
season, I'm giving it to. I'd say he's probably the most obvious candidate, and that's De Bruyne. And that's just the way that in the last couple of weeks he seems to have, like you said, moments player. Like that goal against Arsenal at the Emirates. Like I know that it came from a mistake from Tomiyasu, but to finish like that on it with his weaker foot from that angle, from that far out as well. It wasn't really that tough of an angle, but still. Um,
Running at that pace.
yeah, and that's the opening goal, and then the second time he scored against Arsenal at the Etihad as well, opening goal once again, fantastic goal. The goal against Real Madrid as well, because I think if Real went into into the Etihad with a 1 goal lead, I'm not sure it would have been a lot more difficult for City, at
Yeah,
least.
I agree. Rodrigo probably doesn't start that second leg if they're 1-0 up.
Yeah, yeah. But the way that he's, I guess, just turned it around in the past maybe 7 or 8 weeks, probably since like mid Feb to late Feb, and then there's certain moments as well. Like, do you remember I think it was at the Emirates where he had that little run in with Arteta because Arteta tried to like keep the ball off him. That, you know what? Like, in hindsight, I think ever since that moment, Arteta's been a little bit subdued on the touchline. And I flagged this a couple of weeks ago where like I've noticed that Arteta's been more subdued on the touchline. Whether it was the FA that talked to him about toning it down, coming out of your technical area less and less. Whether it was a referees association, but there was a lot being highlighted around his behaviour. But in that time as well, there was also that run in with De Bruyne, and like who knows what De Bruyne said to him as well. Probably need to get some lip reading experts on that. And then also, was it now the second leg against Real Madrid where he basically had an outburst towards Pep as well. He's playing angry, it seems, and like it seems like that's been a very good motivator at least.
Yeah, it's crazy because my rule is generally if someone scores 50 goals in a season, they're the best player in the world, or at least right there. And I guess Haaland is right there. But like, it just completely makes sense that it's Kevin De Bruyne out of the two of them. It's just the eye test, the importance. I said it after the second leg of the Real Madrid tie, but he's maybe overtaken that mantle from Luka Modric this season of that moment's player, that guy who gets the things done in the key moments, and how fitting it is against Real Madrid in the semi-final that I think that's the moment where he sort of takes it from him. We'll obviously see. Things can happen in football. We'll see next season, but I can't disagree with that in terms of other candidates. Can't really throw any at you because of team success. If we're just
Well,
going off
you
out
probably could have put
and what
Osimhen
they
in there if he didn't get injured, if he didn't curtail
yeah
towards the end of the
yeah
season. You could have put
exactly. I think
Erdegaard in there as well. You could have put Saliba in there. I had the season of not, but like these are players where like either their individual season or the team's season curtailed towards the end.
yeah, and that's the problem. And I think even though De Bruyne, you certainly had your question marks middle of the season that he hasn't been as good as he has, and he probably hasn't overall. But I kept maintaining. I think the moments he's producing are as good as they ever have
Well,
been. And
post World
I mean,
Cup January he
yeah, post
was
because everything got
yeah.
the screws got tightened,
Mm.
everything got important. So and he really shone. So yeah, I can't because Napoli didn't at least make it to the semi-finals. We didn't get that exposure. We haven't had that Victor Osimhen exposure recently because Napoli aren't playing for anything. We haven't had the Ter Stegen exposure because Barcelona aren't really playing for anything. But he's definitely in with a shout for because if you think the most important player, and I think that's what you've gone with. You've gone with the most important player on the best team. So yeah, because Barcelona's failures in Europe, you can't go who I think Ter Stegen has been their most important player. You can't go with him because De Bruyne instantly outshines him for the team success aspect. Yeah, I think Osimhen is probably the only one who somewhat comes close because let's not forget, even though it's been in our rearview mirror for a little bit, this Napoli title, it is still a title for Napoli, and it's the first one they've won since Diego Maradona. So it's no mean feat. First one in over 30 years. It's no mean feat that they got to the Champions League quarterfinals the first time in their history. So I think it has to be for me. De Bruyne has taken it in recent weeks because we did a segment I think a few weeks ago, and for me, I said I outlined it was Victor Osimhen for me. But yeah, I think in recent weeks, De Bruyne has taken it. I would have Osimhen two, and I don't even know who three would
Well, a
be.
shout out would be also be Harry Kane. Like, if you consider how
Yeah, I'm thinking that
bad Tottenham has been as a team,
Harry
but he scored almost 30 goals this season, and he would have gotten the Golden Boot
Harry
if Haaland didn't come into the league.
Harry Kane is almost like maybe if you put it this way, there's an award for Player of the Year, and that's all encompassing in terms of what the team does and everything else. And then there might be Footballer of the Year, where you're just admiring what someone does in a footballing sense.
Yeah,
And
but
I
why
think
doesn't
Harry
Haaland
Kane,
get that or De Bruyne?
I De, because like we say, De Bruyne is the moments guy, so he's not. And I guess Kane, but Kane is such a hybrid forward. That's why I prefer watching Harry Kane over Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland is bully, and that's fine because has the frame of someone who can bully
Yeah.
whoever, and he's got the pace of someone who can bully whoever. But I think Harry Kane has got that in his game, but he's got a bit more subtlety. He can play that 9.5 role. He can link up. I know his assist numbers haven't been great this season, but he still links the play well, and his goal scoring record is phenomenal. And to do it, like I said, he's done it in like 25 or so games, the 28 goals, which I think is a good indicator of he's popping up in key points for his team. But team are just nowhere near good enough for him to justify winning player of the season. But for my eye, yeah, he might be the footballer of the season because I've really admired what Harry Kane has done this season.
You know who would have? You know how like I talked about players that their seasons curtailed either from an individual perspective or from a team perspective, like Mbappe. Like up until and including the World Cup, he was having a fantastic season. But then after that,
But that was the whole of PSG.
yeah,
Mbappe's the only one post World Cup who's at least he's still doing things. He's still scoring goals.
Vinny is also a good shout. Another 20. What did we say? 20 goal, 20 assist season. Another one, second one in a row. So he's obviously a good shout too.
Yeah. Oh, and if we're staying in France, big shout out for Seiko Fofana. Man, he's captain fantastic this season. I think in terms of I don't know, in terms of the come up, I don't know, maybe you could also Bruno Guimaraes has to be in that conversation as well. Best player on probably most important player on that Newcastle team. Um, Botman might pop up in another category later, but yeah, I think we've done all our shout outs. Interesting how we haven't said we already alluded to Jude Bellingham could have a shout. No Bayern players though.
No.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Thomas Partey would have been a shout, but again, another player that season
he dipped off.
Yeah, he dipped off, but he started so well because like he was probably like one of, but he I know like you're going sort of more towards a defensive role, but like because Casemiro sort of dipped off as well, but like him and Casemiro, like Partey and Casemiro, we're putting them down as the two best, I guess, holding midfielders in the Premier League around the middle of the season.
Casemiro started getting suspended. That was his
Yeah,
problem.
and isn't this like like at United was the first time he ever got a red card in his career as well?
Yeah, then he
He
got
never got a
two
red
of
card.
them
Yeah,
in
insane.
London buses.
Um, but next category, signing of the year. Um, should I just get straight into who it is and then we can do shout outs?
Yeah, do it.
So I'm I'm gonna give it to Sven Botman. Probably for the impact that he's had. And not just the impact, but I guess uh, the fanfare or relevance around the signing, like not relevance, like fanfare, I guess. Everyone was like, "What kind of signing is this?" Like everyone was expecting Newcastle to sign some amazing, like big name defender, like make a statement signing or something like that. And he's come in there, slotted in, pretty much. Do they still have the best defensive record in the EPL as well, or are they second now
Uh,
behind City?
they're touch and go with City.
Yeah, but like the impact that he's had on the team, and also like I said, the fanfare as well, or lack of fanfare. Um, Amazing signing by Newcastle. You honourable mentions would have been Zinchenko and Jesus as well for Arsenal. From one perspective, but not a technical perspective, Saliba, because he made his Arsenal debut this season, but he was signed
Yeah,
3 years ago. But that, from one perspective, he is a new signing. From another perspective, he isn't. So he would have been, if he was actually signed this season, he would have been the signing of the season, despite his injury towards the end. I think I still would have put him down as signing of the season, but because he's not a new signing, so he doesn't qualify. Um, Haaland as well qualifies for this one, but I guess
well, that's
I wanted
what I was going to say.
I wanted to preface it. Monday Night Football you can't have the same player for
Okay.
another category, so you can't have like, for instance, yeah, you can't have Haaland picking up best player and best young player, and signing of the season. So you have to have a different player
Yeah,
or whatever
you
for
buried the lead on that one because for me it's definitely Erling Haaland, and I
yeah.
think the second for me is Casemiro.
I think did I mention Casemiro? I'm not sure if I did.
No, but like
But
we got
he's an
there.
obvious shout out as well for signing of the season.
I would I would go I would go Haaland one for the sheer volume of goals. I don't think anyone
but
expected him
like
to
I
do
said,
this.
he already won an award, so it
Yeah, I
disqualifies
know,
him from
but
winning
like
another.
just purely on like who I think should win, it's probably Haaland, but I think Casemiro is really close, and I put Casemiro above Botman for me just because while I love Sven Botman, if I was going centre back signing of the season, and I know I'm adding the continental flavour, I'd put Kim Min Jae above him still. Um, in Premier League terms, I'd still go Casemiro because I think the impact Casemiro had on that United team was greater than the impact Botman had on the Newcastle team. I think it was always Howe's intention to be defensively solid and set up a team like that. I think Nick Pope could also be in
Yeah.
the with a shout of signing of the season. So when you add like two of them together, like it becomes like, oh, they've made two really good signings. Like, which one can I give it to? So I think it's more of a collective effort with the Sven Botman one. And I would still put a Kim Min Jae above him. I put a Casemiro above him for that impact. And that United team just transformed when Casemiro came in and he showed his leadership and showed his ability as well because he was unleashed somewhat from that holding role to do more. That goal against Bournemouth on the weekend just shows you what he can do and what he has been doing this season. So I would still put him there. I would give a shout out to Lewandowski. I think he was a key signing for Barca. We've forgotten about him in recent months, but he was pretty pivotal to Barca's early season form with his goals. Um, but
Is
yeah,
Griezmann considered a signing as well?
that
Technically, he
man,
is.
yeah, if Griezmann is considered a signing, that he deserves a big shout. He might even win the whole thing for me because he's made Atletico
Well,
not only
he
a
technically
watchable team
was
but a
signed as a
really good
player.
team.
He was
Yeah,
signed as a player
exactly.
this
And then
season. Yeah.
after the weekend, I think they moved back into second, so he is a really good shout. I'm more interested in the next category, which I believe you've added, which is they didn't do it on Monday Night Football though, did they? But
Nope.
the meaner category of, because I think we have a lot more candidates for this category than the first one.
Depends on how you want to name it. It's flop of the season or flop signing of the season. And you know what? Like, I had one name that immediately sprung to mind, and it's not a vengeance sort of naming, but like now that I'm thinking about how you can approach this one, but now that I'm thinking about how you can approach this one, you can technically give it to a management team / manager as well, rather than a player. And yes, maybe I'll go dual as well. So this award can be probably shared. I'm going to give it to Mudryk based on the fanfare, the amount of money that was spent on him, and I guess I'm not sure how much underhandedness maybe there was underhandedness because there was greediness from Shakhtar. There was probably greediness from Mudryk as well because Arsenal were probably offering him a lot less wages. So, but like besides that 15-minute cameo that he had against Liverpool, he's done absolutely nothing for Chelsea. So he probably there's another player as well that I was willing to give it to until I thought of Mudryk, and it was going to be Mislav Orsic from Southampton because he was signed in January for them.
Not high profile enough. Come on.
Exactly. Dude, that's the thing.
All right, listen to this. Listen to this. This is why I was so excited for this category.
Go on.
I think you could conceivably put. Now, I don't want to be as mean to my boy as this, but you could, for the fee paid, put Enzo Fernandez in this list. I know a lot of people.
He's featured a lot more for Chelsea. That's why I'm putting Mudryk.
No, I think he's been fine. I personally wouldn't, but for the fee paid, you could.
Yeah.
This guy, a lot of people will be quick to jump and put this guy in, Anthony.
Yeah.
This guy has the strongest case so far. Wesley Fofana, according to transfermarket.com, bought for £80 million. His market value now is £40 million. He has halved in value. If that doesn't say flop, I don't know what does. Then we have to keep going down a little bit. I would put... Look, this is harsh because he might be really good next season because he's young. Matthias de Ligt for this season has not justified a near €70 million transfer fee. Sticking at Bayern, what about Sadio Mane? In the mould of Sadio Mane, what about Raheem Sterling? Bought for Chelsea. Romelu Lukaku's kind of making good on his loan move at the moment. João Cancelo sort of rectified himself a bit in recent weeks. Oh, here's another good Chelsea one. Mark Cucurella, bought for €65 million. Market value, €28 million. Look, so that you know that I'm not doing a bias here, I've got to throw this one in. Darwin Nunez, bought for €80 million, market value €55 million.
Mm-hmm.
An instant loss, Richarlison.
Oh, yeah,
Now, he's only lost €10 million value, but he has not been good at all.
Anthony Gordon, Calvin Phillips, yeah. It depends how much Calvin Phillips was bought for. Wasn't it like 30 mil or 40 mil?
I think it was like 40, 45. So
yeah, but when you're comparing it to these players that are bought for like 60 plus, like Fofana,
45
Mudryk,
euros, €45 million.
Yeah. But Cucurella, Fofana, Mudryk.
Oh, I got one for you. On the continent, and now it was a free transfer. So like maybe
that doesn't. I don't think free transfers count
Paul
as flops.
Pogba. Yeah, well, you're paying him a lot in wages. Paul Pogba, who's barely played a game for Juve this season.
Yeah, but that's down to injury. That's not down to form.
Yeah, maybe not his fault, but still, that's not good. Lucas Paquetá.
Nah.
Nearly 50 million. Not on that level. Kalidou Koulibaly. A lot of people will say he's been a flop. I don't think he has.
I don't think he
personally.
has, no.
I think that's about where we'll end on page 2 of this transfer bucket list. So
But what about
take your pick. There have been so many flop signings.
what about Thomas Tuchel?
Yeah, well, that was you doing the whole Bayern infrastructure thing, and
Yeah, like
man, well,
you
they're
could
not going to
give
win a trophy, so it's hard to argue it.
you could obviously give flop signing to him because technically managers are signings, aren't they? Like signing of the season could even be De Zerbi, for instance. Like if you're not limiting it to just players. So, but I think all in all, I think I have to give it to Mudryk
Yeah, fair enough.
because
I
at
was
least
just happy to go through that list.
yeah, at least Enzo is actually playing every week.
Yeah, Enzo will be fine.
Yeah.
Wesley Fofana and Mark Cucurella are unforgivable, though. I think they could... I don't know who to put above the other in terms of who's the biggest flop
I think
out of those
especially
two.
Fofana because like he forced that transfer as well, and like he was like refusing to train or refusing to play, so like that makes it even worse. So, sort of just rewinding back to signing the season, probably Paulo Dybala as well could be an honourable mention, perhaps.
No, but I did... Just because of the injuries,
Yeah.
I wouldn't quite put him there, but I did see another one in... I was going to say Bremer for Juve, but because Juve might not even finish top 4. To be fair, they would have finished top 4 if they got all their points, and that's not his fault. So he's been quite good this season as well.
Yeah.
But what's how many categories do we have?
We got another 3 left. But all right, so
Cool,
is flop of the season Mudryk for you as well, or is it someone else? For me, it's Mudryk.
I could go with Mudryk.
And that's no bias or vengeance or anything like that. It's just based on pure facts. Like he's barely played, and price tag is
like I said. I was just happy to give us the list.
Yeah,
that was a bit of fun.
What
do we got next?
Team of the year. So like this is obviously like the actual team, how well they've placed, how well they've played as well, like aesthetically. This one, it's still I still could technically give it to Arsenal based on 80% of the season, but I think just this maybe even 90% of the season because it was only like the last 8 games that they've fallen off. And like they've played amazing, and for 80-90% of the season, we were saying that they were playing better than City, like more eye-catching football than City. But I think it's too much of a dent against them, the way they've Fast and Furious out. They've Paul Walkered out. So another honourable mention would be Brighton under De Zerbi. And this is between 2 teams for me, at least the EPL based. It is Newcastle and City. City are obviously on for the treble, and maybe we should have waited for the actual Champions League to be finished. Because if City win the treble, then they're obviously team of the year or team of the season. But I'm giving it to Newcastle at this point in time. But I'm not locking it in. If City win the treble, I'm giving it to City.
Yeah, but I think that makes it undeniable.
You also got to factor in.
I think you can already put them. You can already put them there.
Yeah, but similar to the Eddie Howe Manager of the Year, you have to factor in that they're overachieving. Like we didn't expect them to get Champions League football this year. We expected them to potentially get Champions League football next year or in 2 years' time.
I would. I think they're probably the 2 options. I think it is somewhat a little unfair on Arsenal because for 2/3 of the season they
more
were
than
probably
2/3
the choice.
Probably
I think it was about 2/3.
3/4, I'd say.
No, it was the City game at home. I think that's when things kind of.
Yeah, but after that, they won 3 games or 4 games. I
know, but you said it yourself about the stats post World Cup that it didn't matter that Saliba was there; they were just changing a little bit. I think, but I think it's maybe a little harsh. In terms of my eye and my aesthetic, I prefer Newcastle. I prefer watching Newcastle. I think they play a more attractive style of football for me personally than City, but how can you deny watching City when the talent that they have and the resolve and the toolbox, the arsenal of ways that they can beat you that they have? It's hard to deny them. Napoli will always be in
Napoli,
that
yeah.
conversation. Yeah, have been breathtaking this season at times. Unfortunately for them, they wrapped up the title early and couldn't go on with
But
the Champions League. So, like,
similar to
yeah,
Arsenal, they've sort of whimpered off as well.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. They've been out of the spotlight, and as such, they haven't been playing as well as they were when they were in it earlier season. So it's hard to justify them when Manchester City are still right in our faces, and Newcastle somewhat are as well because they just qualified for Champions League for the first time in like 20 years. Obviously, no one from Germany, and no one from Spain. If Atletico had played post World Cup the whole season, that kind of form, then they'd be in this mix. And honestly, I don't think Barcelona would be champions of Spain, to be quite honest. But yeah, I think they're all the teams that you can really. Oh, and Lens, of course. Lens deserve a very good mention. They've been a great watch, as well as they've got those multifacets. They're an intense team. They can defend. They can attack. They can grind out wins. So yeah, they're the teams I'd mention. Team of the season. I think it is between Manchester City and Newcastle, but it's begrudgingly Manchester City for me.
Like I said, if City win the treble, I'm changing it to City. I'm revoking the title
Yeah,
from Newcastle, and I'm giving it to City. But at this point in time, I think even actually, you know what? I'm not going to say treble. I'm going to say if City win the Champions League, so they can lose the FA Cup, but if they win the Champions League, they're the team of the season. But if they win just the FA Cup and the league, I'm going to give it to Newcastle. So yeah, we'll put a little. We won't seal and deliver that award just yet. Now, the next one, biggest surprise, and this can be anything. So this can be player, like player signing, player being most improved, team being most improved, team being bad.
what point is this from? Like what we
Any
thought something would be at the start of the season, or
and
just
anything.
things?
It's
Okay,
a complete wild card.
go on. Give me a feel. Give me yours and give me a feel. Then
I'm giving it to the whole Chelsea team or club.
that's fair.
I think it could have surprise could have been again. It could have been Newcastle because they've surprised how well they've done. Could have been
Yeah.
Brighton considering how well they've done. Could have been Liverpool, but Liverpool have actually come good towards the end of the season. Maybe not good to your standards but based on like they were down where Chelsea were. Like are Chelsea like 14th or something right now? EPL table.
Yeah. Could have been Barca's defensive
They're
record.
12th.
Could be Napoli's title.
Yeah, like could be anything. Could be
Could
anything
be
bad.
Bayern Munich not potentially not winning a trophy, or if you want to look at it the other side, Borussia Dortmund maybe winning the league.
Sacking Nagelsmann, that's a surprise as well.
Yeah,
That was a
in
complete
of
surprise.
itself.
Um,
It can't be PSG's form post World Cup because that did not
didn't
shock me
that
one
didn't
bit.
surprise me at all. I always expected PSG to fall off. I was never holding to high regard, and you can go back to the pods at the start of the season.
Lens are definitely again could be in this category as well.
Tottenham
so.
technically as well, because like everyone was expecting them to potentially challenge for the title, or at least secure third. And they've completely fallen off. So from a negative perspective, biggest surprise. Arsenal, biggest surprise as well, considering they challenged for the title up until week 32, I guess. There's a lot of these, but I'm giving it to Chelsea just based on how shocking their season was, and like we expected them to be up there with Liverpool, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, and themselves.
I don't know. Honestly,
With Tuchel Tuchel's still there at the start of the season.
Yeah, no, but they were unstable and they were poor at the end of last season as well. But
we didn't expect them to be this bad.
Tough because it's tough because Chelsea have been that bad. They have been diabolical. But in terms of who actually came into the season with real expectations, Liverpool are more of a shock for me for that because Chelsea was still. Obviously, I never thought they'd be 12th at this stage of the season, but they were touch and go whether they were still like elite because that second half of last season was not good from Chelsea. And then coupled with the fact that it's no longer Abramovich's Chelsea, I think they did have enough instability there to suggest, well, there might be some sort of weird thing going on at Chelsea. Liverpool had none of that going into the season. Remember after they won the Community Shield? It's just like, oh, it'll be Manchester City against Liverpool again this season. Like, what are we doing? We're just going to watch the same thing as we watched last season. And then Liverpool came out for that game against Fulham, and it was just like, oh my God, that's not what's going to happen at all this season. Liverpool are somewhat done this season. So that was shocking to me. But look, I have to. Yeah.
Two other ones, and this is World Cup based. Croatia beating Brazil.
Yeah.
And Morocco's run to the semis.
Yeah, Morocco's run was obviously shocking pre-World Cup, but as it was happening, it just felt right. It felt like Morocco were going to make the semi-finals. Because they were just, I don't know, they were just going to come through Spain and Portugal who had their own deficiencies.
Yeah, but I think...
definitely. That Croatia win against Brazil, that was shocking.
But I still think that Chelsea takes it just based on also the money that they've spent. Like, didn't they spend $500 million all up since Bowley's come in?
Yeah. Yeah, see, I just don't know if shocking is the right word, but I agree. It's crazy what's happening there. But I'll put a positive spin and I'll give this category to Napoli because I didn't even put them in. I think, like I keep saying, when I did that preview of the season with Marty going into the season, I named 6 clubs who I thought could win the league, and I didn't put Napoli in that list because after they lost
who was
Koulibaly after they lost Insigne.
If you're not putting Napoli in,
Lazio were my weakest one. They were 6th. Then I obviously had the defending champions AC. I think I had Inter winning it going into the season. Juve, of course, would have been there, and I would have said Roma.
Really, you put Roma above Napoli? What, Atalanta?
Yeah, going into the season because Roma were coming off the back of winning that.
You have one more spot.
Mourinho. Yeah, but Mourinho, I know Napoli had a good season, but like I said, they lost Koulibaly, they lost Insigne, they lost Mertens, they lost what it looked like it was going to be the spine of their team, but it was a blessing in disguise for them because they replaced the only thing they had to really replace was Koulibaly, and they probably got an upgrade in Kim Min-jae, especially for this season. So, yeah, I'm going to give them a surprise.
But who was? That's only 5 teams that you named, and then what you put Atalanta above them?
It might have just been 5. I might have stopped at 5 then.
Yeah, it's fucking right.
I thought it was 5 or 6. I don't know.
And favorite game that can be from the EPL, World Cup, around the leagues, Champions League. For me, I was gonna put it was one of 2 Liverpool games. One was firstly it was the was it 5-2 Real Madrid?
Yeah.
That one, from a neutral perspective, like that was just wow. Like that was actually like the way that Real Madrid took over the game and started just like dictating it. There was like it was actually some breathtaking football in my opinion. Maybe from a Liverpool perspective or a Liverpool fan, maybe I don't know whether you saw it that way or not because you have a different veil over your eyes. But there was some really nice football played in that game. Even from Liverpool in the first 20 minutes, there was some really nice football. But the game that took it was Liverpool-Man United 7-0. Obviously, the World Cup finals and honorable mention as well. That was an amazing game. Considering the
World
swings,
Cup final for the stakes, yeah.
But the swings as well, like amazing.
If we're eliminating World Cup final, I agree. Real Madrid, Liverpool.
You don't have to eliminate the World Cup final,
game.
But like you can put it there if you want.
Yeah, but if we are, because I would put that number 1 just for that is maybe the greatest World Cup final ever. It's just how crazy it was. So the fact that it happened this year, I would put that number 1. But if I'm not, I agree. Real Madrid, Liverpool is a good shout. My only problem is Liverpool were not relevant enough this season. They weren't if that was superpower Liverpool, then there's absolutely no doubt that I'm giving I'm giving that the number one spot, but it wasn't superpower. It was very fragile Liverpool, and you could see it in that game. You got to say Manchester City's 4-0 win against Real Madrid in the second leg. It's I don't think it's really recency bias, although it happened very recently. But that's a
favorite
seismic
game.
event.
Favorite game. So like the
Well,
one that you enjoyed watching the
favorite.
most.
I don't know, but I think in terms of best game, I think in terms of what it meant, that one needs a mention. Favorite games. I think you could take your pick of either of the Napoli against Juve games, the 5-1 at home, or the 1-0 win that pretty much secured the title away in Turin. I thought both of those games were really good. Oh, man. I think I would maybe point to Milan winning 4-0 at Napoli in the league. I thought that was a really good game to watch. And I thought it was a seismic game in terms of that side of the bracket and Napoli not being able to progress as we've been through. Obviously, the 7-0 was a bright spot in a pretty otherwise bleak season for Liverpool. Don't know, off the top of my head, what would I choose out of there? Best game to watch.
Maybe consider it from the perspective, what game, out of all of the games this season, what game would you watch again first? And I know there's still actually game. The Champions League final could end up being an amazing game. So like maybe this ends up changing because there's still some games left to play this season.
Yeah. Oh, which game would I watch?
The World Cup final springs to mind, but like the 7-0 as well. Like
that's number one. Yeah. Well, you're asking a Liverpool fan, so the 7-0. If I was completely neutral, I might go with Real Madrid at Anfield against Liverpool.
I'd probably
that had a bit of everything. The swing and the Liverpool playing well for 20 minutes, Anfield getting into it, and then the Masters just doing their work. Vinny, a great performance, goalkeeping mistakes. That had a bit of everything. So, and then Real Madrid dominance in the second half. So, yeah, completely neutral. That might be my pick. If not, well, it's the World Cup final, and if not that, it's Liverpool. Liverpool putting 7 past United, that was kind of nice. But although they'll get the last laugh, so fair play.
Yeah, I think, like I said, for me, it's the 7-0. I really enjoyed watching that game. Because it was you could have also put like biggest surprise because like every time a goal went in, I think after 4-0 every time a goal went in you're like what like he was like
I know.
It's just shocking and then like it's like 5-0 what like 6-0 what 7-0 like
every shot,
it's like this is like actually like shocking surprise. But yeah, like that brings, unless you have any other awards that you can think of off the top of your head, that pretty much wraps that up.
We'll do my favorite thing, the teams of the season at some point soon.
Yeah,
but yeah, no,
maybe
that was good.
After the Champions League.
Maybe.
That's in 2 weeks time, thereabouts, 2.5 weeks.
Oh, what are we going to talk about for 2 weeks before the Champions League final? If we're not doing maybe we'll do like third and second. I don't know. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We'll talk to each other, see how much it's going to change over the next 2 weeks. But yeah, we'll do it at some point.
We'll see how we go. But yeah, that's our awards for people that have tuned in. Let us know what you think in the comments. Whether you agree, disagree, or have your nominations for certain awards. But yeah, to everyone that's tuned in so far, we tried to keep it short. It's slightly shorter than 2 hours. But to everyone, thanks for coming and bye for now.